I have seen the sewing future, and it involves a lot of bias tape. Hello everyone, welcome to the Joonmade channel. My name is Paula Jean, and this is my brand new space in the YouTubeverse, where I am sharing about my adventures in sewing and making for my own wardrobe and for my home. And that is a plane flying overhead. I'm just gonna keep going. Now, if you are in a bias tape emergency and you're like, get on with the tutorial, pop down to the chapters below and skip ahead. Good luck on your project. If you have a few seconds to hang out, I will tell you why I use it, how I use it, why I love making my own, and why you might want to jump on that bandwagon as well. So first, what is it? Bias tape, also called bias binding, is basically a strip of fabric that is cut on the bias, hence the name, which is the 45-degree angle to the selvage or cut edge of a piece of fabric. Any woven fabric that is cut on the bias has a little bit of stretch to it, and why this works for bias binding is because if you are applying it to a curve or a rounded edge, it means that it will lie flat and not get all bunched up and weird the way it would if you cut it on the straight grain or cross grain. So that's what we're talking about here. Some of the ways that I have used it, most recently, just before the holidays, I made myself an at-home spa suit. I love this so much. It is probably one of my most worn me-made garments or garment sets, and I will definitely be making another one. I use the Friday Pattern Company sport shorts, which is a pay what you can pattern, and I did a major hack to the True Bias Calvin wrap dress. I also use bias tape to rescue some old, dirty, dingy pot holders, and now they are fresh, happy new ones that I am no longer embarrassed by. I have also used it for flat piping to highlight the design lines of a skirt. I am also hoping this year to make the Dirando Luzerne trench coat, which uses bias tape to finish all of the seams and takes 11 yards of it. So I probably should have already started on that already. Now, you can totally buy bias tape ready-made from a store. There are a few reasons that I prefer to make my own. Number one is that I am not limited in terms of fabric. You can use almost any woven fabric to make your own bias tape, and it's a great scrap buster. You probably have lots of fabric in your stash that you can use to make it. Another reason is that you have more size options. So depending on the thickness of the fabric that you're binding or that you're finishing a seam with or using it as a facing for, you can have different widths of bias tape. So you're not trying to like squeeze the little tiny bias tape onto the edge of the fabric. And probably the most important reason is that it saves fabric. If you're using a pattern that has those long strips of bias that you're supposed to place on the fabric when you're placing out all of the rest of your pattern, that can take up a lot of real estate. So just needing to save a little square at the end that you can make continuous bias tape is really good if you're looking to conserve your fabric. In this tutorial, I am using a bias tape maker that looks like this. You do not have to use one of these. You can do all of the folding by hand. I think it is more than worth the investment in either one or a set of these. You can get them from your favorite sewing supply vendor or Amazon for probably about 15 bucks, and it will save you so much time and so many blisters. Ask me how I know that. So I hope that's a pretty good overview of what bias tape is and why you might want to use it. So let's get to the tutorial. Just a heads up, I had originally done this on Instagram, so the footage is in portrait mode. All of my other videos will obviously be in landscape mode, but you can turn off your closed captioning so you can get the full image, because I have actually written out the my own closed captions essentially so that you can get the full image of what's going on in the video. So let's get to it, and I'll see you on the other side.
Let's make some continuous bias tape for some Friday Pattern Company sport shorts, using this Not Really Me quilting cotton from my stash. First, we'll rip off a straight chunk for the waistband. I've made sure the fabric is on grain. Then measure how much bias tape we need. and how wide. Don't forget the pockets. Now the maths. We'll need 129 inches or just over 3.5 yards. I use Kestrel Michaud's chart. I find it more accurate and I like her font. A 15.5-inch square will yield about 4 yards of 1.5-inch bias strip. I'm just rounding up to 16 inches. Someone needs to change her blade. Cut the square diagonally. Then place the 2 straight grain edges right sides together so that we have something that kind of looks like a bunting flag. Make sure to offset so there's a little dog ear the width of the seam allowance. I'm doing 3/8 of an inch. And so. Press as sewn, then press the seam open. Now mark lines 1.5 inches apart parallel to the bias edge. And trim off any excess. Okay, this next part is going to give us a piece that looks twisted, weird, and wrong, like that blind date we're trying to forget. We're just going to roll with it. We're going to put the straight grain sides, which now look diagonal, right sides together, matching the pointy end of one side to line up with the first drawn line of the other side. Offset the point so that the lines will intersect at the seam, not the edge. I warned you. After sewing, it will look like this. And we'll cut along the now continuous line. I didn't press the second seam because I'm using heat erasable marker. Do we have enough? 4 yards, yay! Now we can press those seams open and snip off these bits. To find the right size bias tape maker, fold the strip in half widthwise and choose the closest match. Use a pin to slide the strip through. Ooh! Use a couple of pins to secure the fabric to the ironing board. And away we go. Next we'll press in half, but first, an extra layer for a little heat protection. This one came with one of my curling irons, but even a thin cotton glove will help. And presto! Bias for days. And for shorts. Making bias tape is an awesome scrap buster. These are some 10-inch squares and the tape they made. I cut a different width strip for each square, and here's what I got in length and single and double fold width. The one on the right is 1/2-inch single fold store-bought tape.
I hope you found that helpful. I hope it demystified bias tape for you if you were at all mystified by it before. I have left a couple of links in the description for the Friday Pattern Company sport shorts. It's a great pattern. I highly recommend it. And for the chart that I use to determine how big of a square to use to get the length of bias tape that you need. Now, because I am brand new here and have like 1.5 subscribers, it doesn't show up as a hyperlink quite yet. So you might have to copy and paste that into your browser. Now, this is the point where I would tell you to like and subscribe to my channel. And by all means, if you did find this helpful or you just want to give some encouragement to a brand new sewing YouTuber to make more videos, I would be eternally grateful. If you would like more intel on what I'm about and what kind of things that I make that I might be sharing on here, then I would invite you to check out the Joonmade blog or the Joonmade Instagram page. Both of those are linked in my banner and down below. Check them out. If you like what you see, then come on back here and we'll make some cool stuff. All right, enjoy your day and I will see you next time.